Today, before we start Be'ezras Hashem, the next Maimer on Parshas Shlach, let's try to review the previous Maimer Alpayim Shana Kadma Teira Leilam. It's a bit of a hard Maimer, a little bit complicated, but let's try and get at least the general points and as much as possible bring it down to the practical level. When you have a person, let's look at the mashal, at the analogy from a person, because that's the way we can understand it, how it is with godliness. So let's start how it is with a person. The level of tainug, of pleasure, that a person has is something which is the essence of the person. When a person enjoys something, there's two faculties of the soul which are more than just faculties, they're expressions of the very essence of the soul, and that is ratzain and tainug. Ratzain is the will, the desire. The desire is something which the soul wants. It's not like love. Love is an expression. I love something. When I want something, it's I that want something. Love is a feeling of the heart. Will, desire is not a feeling. And that's why desire, we say in Chassidus, ein tam l'ratzain. When a person wants something, there's no reason for it. You can't explain, why do I want a specific thing? Nevertheless, ratzain, despite the fact that it's the expression of the very essence of the soul itself, it's still called the chitzonius, the outer level of the expression of the soul. Because a desire, when someone wants something, although there's no real reason for it, it could be explained logically. It could come down and deal with things. It's chitzonius, meaning it still has some type of relation to the other faculties of the soul, to the feelings and expressions, intellect and emotion. Tainug, pleasure, is called the pnimius, is the inner essence of the soul, because a pleasure, when someone has pleasure, there's for sure no explanation. Ratzin, desire, is still a will, it's still something that connects to intellect and emotions. It connects to something I want. Why do I want? I can still give some type of explanation to it. Pleasure, when it's something that I enjoy, that's like the pnimius of ratzin. That's the inner essence of will, because desire and pleasure are really interconnected. But pleasure is something which is totally removed from anything else. Pleasure can't be explained, it can't be pulled down into logic, it can't be put into an emotion. It's pleasure. Why do I have pleasure from a specific thing? Because pleasure is just the essence of the soul expressing itself, so to speak, in the idea of pleasure. That's the way it is in a person. Now, let's take this to the next level. Imagine a person then goes on to learn a concept. When a person learns an idea, the greatest pleasure is when a person knows something, he understands something. And there's two levels of that. There's Chachma and Bina. Chachma is still above understanding. It's just acquiring the knowledge. And that itself also gives a person pleasure, the fact that he knows more things. Bina, understanding something, understanding it properly, gives an even deeper pleasure. Now, Chachma and Bina is intellect. That's not the soul itself. That's not the expression of the soul itself. That's something which comes into An idea, when a person understands something or knows something, that's not the person. That's outside of the person. It's already a faculty of the soul, which is the soul understanding something. Nonetheless, pleasure, because it is the expression of the essence of the soul, is something that's not revealed. It's not able to be revealed. It can't be expressed properly. It's there, but it can't be expressed. When can it be expressed? What is the strongest expression of pleasure? When it expresses itself in an idea, and even more than that, in an understanding, and understanding the idea. So that's why, even though pleasure is way beyond understanding, you can't explain pleasure, you can't even explain a desire, and certainly not explain pleasure. But yet, when it's in pleasure, it's something which is above, which is beyond, which is not able to express itself. Whereas when it comes down into an idea, and even more than that, into an understanding, then it's able to be expressed, it's able to be brought out and revealed. Take it to the next level. Emotions. The difference between intellect and emotions is that the intellect is something that a person understands for themselves. And I understand an idea, I know an idea, I acquired the wisdom, I go even further and I understand it, I connect to it. It's not for anyone else. It's not the way I'm relating to another person. It's true, the idea is something which is outside of me, and I'm understanding that idea which is not me, but yet I'm understanding it for myself, purely for myself. It's not in the way that I relate to the world. Which is why intellect is still something with which a person is above true and full expression inside the world. Intellect is a person who understands something, a person who knows something, a person who's an intellectual person, many times is a loner, doesn't mix as much with other people. But even more than that, when an idea remains in understanding, it's true that the person enjoys it because he understands it, but that enjoyment is a limited enjoyment. When it comes down into emotions, when that concept which he understood, now he feels it. He feels an emotion of love, fear, hate, happiness, whatever it may be, then it goes beyond just pleasure, which is expressed. It becomes something which is already laughter. Happiness which goes beyond all bounds. In that itself, in emotions, there's the two levels where it's emotions, where it's still a feeling, which is still within the person, and then taking it even a level further, where it's already brought out into speech, or into action. And then when a person brings his happiness or his enjoyment into speech and action, then it goes truly beyond all limitations. This is the way that something comes from the level of pleasure where it's hidden and it begins to become revealed throughout the different levels of the faculties of a person's soul. Take it to the next level. And the next level is when it's the person is not just expressing the feeling of his soul, the pleasure of his soul, in intellect, in emotions, even in speech and action. He's now going a step further and he's actually fighting for something which he wants. He's fighting and overcoming an adversary. That's a level where the person is already involved. It's coming from within the person. What's the idea? The level number one is that it's the concept of the soul which came down level through level until the final level of action. The second idea is something that came from within the person. It's within the person that he overcame the adversary, that he overcame and received and achieved something that he wanted to achieve. The pleasure that comes from that is a deeper one because it's something that comes from myself. It's not just the soul's pleasure. It's something that comes from within me. I got there. I made it. I managed to overcome something that I wanted to overcome, to accomplish something I wanted to accomplish. Now let's look at that in Torah. Torah, in its essence, is like the pleasure of the soul. Torah, in its essence, is one with Hashem. One with Hashem to the extent it can't be expressed even as Torah. It's so one with Hashem. This is Hashem's wisdom, even higher than wisdom. This is Hashem's will. This is Hashem's pleasure. That's what we say, Va'eya etzlei amin. The Torah says, I was by Hashem. His expression of who? Hashem, of Hashem. That's something which is as early back. There's no limit. One can't say how far Torah goes back. It's like a Kadma, and it goes as far as the essence of Hashem, because that is the expression of the essence of Hashem. It's that Torah that Hashem uses as a tool to express the fact that the reality of the world is really godliness and nothing else. That's what the Torah is, a tool, not to make a world that's a separate world, but to reveal that the world is nothing but Hashem, because Torah is the expression of Hashem. In that, however, you can't even feel anything. There's no pleasure that's felt in it. You can't speak about the greatness of the Torah, the fact that it's one with Hashem. Because that's not Torah as a separate thing, that's completely one with Hashem. That hasn't become something else. That doesn't affect anything, that's nothing, that's not Torah as Torah, that's just one with Hashem. Once Torah comes down to become an expression of something, the first thing that it's expressed is Yom Yom. 2 days, which means 2 levels of Alpיים. And like we explained in the Maimer, Alpיים Shana can't mean 2,000 years before the world, because before the world there's no time. It means 2,000 levels or more than that, 2 levels of Elef. 2 levels of intellect, the level of Chachma and the level of Bina. When we're expressing the greatness and the virtue of Torah, we speak about how Torah is intellect. Not how Torah is one with Hashem, because that hasn't expressed itself as anything yet. But as how Torah is the pleasure that's revealed in the intellect of Chachma and the intellect of Bina, meaning that it's expressed, but expressed in a level of godliness that's still completely removed from the world. That's where Torah's essence is expressed. The Shashuim, the pleasure of Hashem, is expressed. Then it goes down further, but this isn't where we're bringing, this is how Torah develops further. It's not the ultimate virtue of the essence of Torah, but rather how Torah comes into midas, not just in Moichin, in intellect, but it goes the next step of midas, which is the emotional attributes. Ace, time, it comes into the realms of time, but not time the way it's different times, but rather time the way time is equal. Because it's Torah the way it's in time. So it's already midas, but midas still the way they're above the world. A step further is misachekes b'tevel artzai, is in malchus, meaning in the world, the way the world is already a world, that Torah is revealed in it. Still in the spiritual sense, not yet in the physical world. And all of these bring schayk, they bring laughter. They bring not just pleasure, but they bring unlimited, unbridled laughter. The ultimate is V'shashua es b'nei Adam, the ultimate pleasure is from not the Torah the way it came from above and was revealed level after level until it came into the world, but rather the Torah the way it changes the world. That's like what comes from within the person himself. And in that, there's two levels. Because there's the idea of how the person himself feels a pleasure from the fact that he overcame an adversary. That's one idea. That's how Torah affects the world and refines and changes and transforms the physical world. That's something that comes from below. Then there's a deeper thing, that the person feels so connected to Hashem that he can't move away from what Hashem wants. That's the way Torah achieves in a person, that he becomes fully one with Hashem. The person down here, not Torah the way it's up there, but the person down here feels that his pleasure is Hashem's pleasure. He becomes totally one with Hashem. That's something which will be revealed fully only in the time of Mashiach, when a person will feel no separation between the Creator and the creation, where the pleasure of Hashem is His pleasure. That's where the ultimate pleasure is revealed.